After days of violence and warnings, the return home of Prime Minister Ariel Henry would trigger a civil war, came a resignation announcement.
After the Council of Ministers accepted to put into place a transitional presidential council, the members of the council will be picked after agreement with different sectors of the national life. The government I'm running will remove itself immediately after the establishment of said council.
The announcement followed emergency talks in Jamaica with Caribbean leaders from the CARICOM regional organization. Also there was America's top diplomat, the U.S. Secretary of State, pledged an additional $100 million for a UN-backed force to stabilize Haiti.
We support the plan to create a broad-based, inclusive, independent presidential college that would, in particular, first take concrete steps to meet the immediate needs of the Haitian people. Second, enable the swift deployment of the multinational security support mission.
Jimmy Cherisier, known as Barbecue, is the leader of the G9 Gang Federation, which is one of the groups that has taken over the streets of Port-au-Prince. Cherisier says he wants to transform Haiti for good, which is why he's threatening hotel owners in the capital for sheltering politicians close to Ariel Henry.
We don't want to give you lies. We're not in a peaceful revolution. We're making a bloody revolution in the country because this system is an apartheid system, a wicked system. Woe betide anyone who hides a politician who collaborates with Ariel Henry in their hotels.
Anger and frustration marked the 3 years of Ariel Henry's tenure as Haiti's leader. Henry rose to power in 2021, weeks after President Jovenel Moïse was assassinated by a group of mercenaries. Henry took control of the government amidst a crippling economy and spiraling violence. In 2023, more than 4,000 Haitians were killed and another 3,000 kidnapped. In 2022, Henry survived an assassination attempt during a ceremony marking Haiti's independence. Some investigators believe Henry was involved in the assassination of Jovenel Moïse, which only added fuel to the turmoil on the streets. In the past year, the gangs became even more powerful, and Henry requested international assistance to help the police and security forces stop their battle to take over. Henry traveled to Kenya to sign a cooperation agreement to deploy 1,000 elite police officers as part of a UN multinational security support team. But he was not allowed to return home.
Many Haitians considered Ariel Henry an illegitimate leader because he was not elected, and many were hoping for him to resign. But even though he did not enjoy the support of the population, he did have the support of the United States and other countries, until now.
Ariel Henry's resignation facilitates a transition in Haiti, but the chaos is ongoing. Half of the population is suffering from acute hunger, and hundreds of thousands have been forced from their homes because of the violence warfare that has taken over their country. Teresa, Al Jazeera, Santo Domingo.
Well, Rosa Freedman is a professor of law, conflict and global development at the University of Reading. She joins us now live from London. Good to speak to you again, Rosa. So this resignation of Ariel Henry is what the gangs in Haiti were calling for. So could this be the beginning of the end of the violence and lawlessness that we're seeing taking over Port-au-Prince?
I mean, of course, the gangs were calling for the resignation of Ariel Henry, but that does not mean that they will stop the violence now. Let's be clear, the gangs at times are doing the work of the government, at other times are doing the work of corrupt elites, at other times are doing the work of international actors who interfere in Haiti, and also are looking for their own power and their own money and to cause chaos and misery. So it's unlikely that the gangs will stop the violence now. This was not simply a populist uprising against Ariel Henry, but was rather about gang violence in a huge power vacuum created by decades of instability caused by international interference in Haiti's politics and governance. Certainly with Ariel Henry's resignation, there is now room to have this transitional council that's going to be put into place and hopefully free and fair elections in Haiti that will then be able to support moving forward and dealing with the gangs.
What do we know about this transitional council and who will be on it?
Well, so it's going to be 7 members with 2 observers who don't have voting rights, and it's unclear right now who will be on it. Certainly, of the 2 observers, there's talk about having a religious leader on there, possibly having an ally of Aristide, who was elected 20 years ago and then promptly put onto a plane and flown out of the country, so that the United States and others could put a puppet government in his place. They didn't like his left-wing politics in particular. So it's unclear who will be the 7 voting members. It's hoped that they will be part of Haitians' very strong and very vibrant civil society. And it's also clear that no one that has been convicted or had UN sanctions can sit on this council, which obviously will preclude many of the gang members, because there was talk of would any of the gang members or leaders be on the council, and it looks very unlikely that they will be.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that, because when we spoke before, you implied that Jimmy Teresa, otherwise known as Barbecue, is actually seeking a return to democracy in Haiti and an elected leader, because, of course, Ariel Henry was not elected. Do you think he could possibly play a positive role as a leader of many of the gangs that control so much of the capital?
I think it will really come down to what he wants and chooses to do. As we discussed, he was a former police officer. He's someone that has very strong populist messages and a strong following from people who believe that he will bring them out of poverty and address corruption in the country. At the same time, he's a complex person, and he's someone that has been accused of many atrocities and many massacres. So whether or not he gets brought into the fold and can help lead the way for democracy will depend, first of all, on those who are talking with him and how much they try to pave the way for him to return to a life that he lived as a police officer serving his country previously. But also it will very much depend on his relationships with other gang leaders, particularly the gangs that oppose him and the gangs that don't want to see him in power because of the atrocities that he's alleged to have committed.
So that's one person to keep an eye on. Another thing to watch is this proposed multinational force that of course, Ariel Henry was trying to get Kenya to lead when he was out of the country. We've just seen the US pledge $100 million for such a force. But one wonders who's going to go in now and whether they'll be welcome.
I mean, the most important thing is that this money or weapons or support must go to supporting Haiti's military and supporting Haiti's police force rather than taking them over. It is because of the constant interventions and taking over of the country that this power vacuum was created in which this gang violence has erupted. It's unclear who would want to go into Haiti, just as it's unclear who would want to go into El Salvador or Honduras or any other country in the region that has mass gang violence, that, you know, in many ways, much worse violence, as we saw in Colombia, where FARC had far more military weapons than the state had itself. It's unclear whether or not there will be an intervention, but certainly a Kenyan-led one is very unlikely. Kenya's courts have prevented Kenya from deploying troops to Haiti, and rightly so, because they don't speak the language, they don't know the climate or the context, and it would be very likely a death sentence for many of the troops if they were deployed there. The United Nations has been trying to deploy a force since October and has failed miserably. And again, rightly so, the UN has only just brought out its peacekeeping and stabilisation missions from the country. It shouldn't be sending another one back in there so quickly.
OK. Rosa Freedman, great to speak to you. Thanks again for joining us here on Al Jazeera.